Hi everyone, welcome to my review of James Watkins' The Woman in Black in 2012. So, a rewatch for me, and this is quite a famous film. Done quite well at the box office, you could say. Well, it did, and yes, not too critically acclaimed. Now I saw this around about the time when it came out, not at the cinema. Shortly after that, and I watched it, and I don't really remember too much other than the jump scares. I remember just thinking that's kind of what I I don't really like too much. It sums up. Well, I don't like too much about modern horror films, but there was something about it. There was a couple of things here and there that was quite interesting, I suppose. But yes, I wanted to rewatch it and just see what I think of it now. And this film, as I said, done well at the box office and everything, but not critically acclaimed. And it's not too loved. Daniel Radcliffe, of course, coming off of Harry Potter. See what I think of Harry Potter sometime. I'll probably be reviewing the entire series. And yes, I have the 4K collection. So you can probably guess that I do like Harry Potter just a bit. And yeah, Daniel Radcliffe, I think in them films was amazing. And I don't think he's bad in the first two actually, either. Like some people say. Now, this is also stars Ciarán Hinds, who's in Game of Thrones, and There'll Be Blood as well. Great actor, and yeah, it's actually Hammer Productions, technically, not of course what it was like decades ago, and yeah, there's no comparison there. What do I think of this film? It's very very divisive, you could say, and it's not a loved film really. I liked it a lot less this time. In fact, I hated it. What a shame. And it just was a boring film. Made me breathless. Was a film where the jump scares were very very cheap, poorly handled. It had somewhat of an atmosphere, um, but very very bare minimum, and actually quite dead in many ways. And the performances weren't great. You got some talent here, of course, as I've said. But the screenplay, it was awful, and that was one of the reasons I think. I just couldn't imagine as well. So Daniel Radcliffe kind of disputing the lines. It's just, and I think it feels like a very very botched kind of BBC watered down BBC kind of drama thing. It's not. I usually love period pieces and stuff when they're done well, and it just set around 1910. For most of the film, you see some events that happened before that in the prologue and stuff. And they go to this English village, which is where that sort of stuff took place, and you've got this woman who terrorises the locals basically, and kids are getting killed and all that kind of stuff. Daniel Radcliffe, you learn very early on, he's he lost his wife, and he's got a kid and everything, who you kind of see him with at the beginning, and the rest of the film basically takes place at this village, and he meets up with this guy Samuel Daly. He kind of befriends, you could say, where everyone else is kind of not welcoming, and you've got some, from what I've explained, some kind of stuff that's on paper quite interesting, and stuff as well that Hammer Productions, a lot of their films were kind of known for, kind of gothic as well, kind of stuff, and where the classic kind of someone goes through a village or something, or goes into a tavern, and everyone's kind of like mysterious, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, this does not resemble anything of past Hammer films, productions, and all the kind of the camp as well that was prevalent, in the good way, and actually the atmosphere and just the fun that a lot of them films were, and as well the visuals. You couldn't say that they were uninteresting visuals. This is just so far away from that, and just considering the talent of the main characters, the actors. What a shame. I really do hate this film. The prologue was a bit crummy, and the first sort of 10 minutes, very very bad melodrama for me. Very stilted performances. Unfortunately, I don't like to say this. And I can't fully blame Daniel Radcliffe, but it's not a good performance. but no one's really good in this film, and it's mainly to do with the script and everything. I just don't think it was good at all, and clearly the direction wasn't good. I really don't think. I don't think this was well directed at all. Watkins, I didn't feel anything really. There was no drive to the film either. It just. And I know loads of people would like it because of the jump scares and everything. But really, the jump scares are bad in this film, and it's not scary. Other than it can make you jump. Yes. This time round, it didn't really make me jump actually at all. And it can make you jump, but it really does not have that sense of dread and atmosphere that really should be here. Despite the overly dark colour tones, and it's just it's not an effective colour palette or anything. I just think it looks very, very dull. Unfortunately. It's like you're just looking out the window at a depressing kind of English village, on a rainy day and stuff, and it shouldn't really be that. It's not cinematic in that sense. There's not much layers to the cinematography. The editing, yeah, we'll talk about the editing. Every scene, when it goes to the next scene, just feels dead. It just feels like they go, okay, let's do this scene, and then you've got about 5 minutes in between each scene, 5 seconds, sorry, 10 seconds maybe, where you just kind of feel, you just feel that kind of breath, you've got kind of just waiting for the next. It's not well edited, it's not got a flow. That's what I'm trying to say. It just feels very, very, like that, and every scene really is bit of a bore, unfortunately. I never really got invested in the woman in black in it. The character, she's not well done, not well written. The build up. She's just a jump scare character, and just really, really done really poorly. I feel very annoying when she just keeps showing up and kind of making noises, hissing noises, and jump scares and all that kind of stuff. Very ineffective for me. The side characters, just the kind of background characters in the village, quite laughable, and just, again, uninteresting. You've got many moments where, someone dies, and then there's the screaming, and just, obviously they thought on this occasion that someone screaming means, oh, you're meant to feel something, but it really was quite laughable. And that can sum up this film. It's boring, it's ineffective and cheap horror, and it is laughable, in the actual drama that it does try and go for, and on paper it's something that could have been tapped into and been quite moving, and, full of, some sort of feeling at least, but none of it translates, and on this occasion it just all falls flat, really. This character of Kibbs, that Daniel Radcliffe plays, is not an interesting protagonist. He's a solicitor, and he comes into contact with, Ciarán Hinds' character. There's a touch there when they meet, and he comes in a car, which I thought might start picking up. There's a bit of warmth there maybe, but it never really goes anywhere. And unfortunately, they're both bland characters. The performances aren't bad. I feel, they're not great. They're quite weak, but they would have been a lot better basically if there was a better script. I think the script all round is poor, really, really bad, and not well developed characters. There's no interesting dialogue. Some of it is pretty poor, and some of the line delivery just isn't great either. Of course, there's some actors that can elevate even the worst of scripts, but it just didn't happen on this occasion. And I'm not saying anything there because Daniel Radcliffe and Ciarán Hinds are great actors when on form. Just this occasion, it just didn't feel like anything really went anywhere as well. They're trying to go for this kind of emotional undercurrent, the loss of children, everything like that. Didn't work for me. It just became very, very melodramatic in a bad way. I always say in a bad way, because there are melodramas that are actually masterpieces. Mainly classic films. I think of Ozu a lot of the time when I say this, and that's why I always say bad melodrama, because they can be done well in that sense, and there's quite a few other filmmakers. But in this, it just feels like you can't take anything seriously. You can't get invested. You can't, and it just becomes laughable. And as well, kind of when you're in that mood, the rest of the film is not scary. But again, it's not really that scary anyway. The way it's been built up, the dread and everything. a bit non-existent. You know, when he does reach that house, you know, that kind of mansion, you know, in the centerpiece of the film, it just feels like it doesn't really feel like a film. It just feels like he's walking through an interactive kind of, you know, house thing, and it's just a kind of device to add all their jump scares in. You know, I can merit somewhat the filmmaking here, a little bit here and there, touches, blemishes. Maybe at times the use of the candles, and yes, some of the sets and everything, and you know the way that the dolls and everything are framed. Yeah, but you know that only goes so far. That's a couple of things that bring the film up. I also feel that the kind of the framing at times is not bad. It's pretty decent. You know the way that the actual house and everything is framed within the kind of the trees and everything. At times, just some of the shots, the way they're framed is pretty decent. It's just in terms of the actual visuals, they are very very flat and lifeless. And yeah, this film just moves very very you know just in very very uninspired ways. It's very very dead in terms of its there's no energy at all. And you know of course I usually do look for films that utilise music best. It's fine to have a film where there's not really any music, and of course there's sound design and stuff, and some music in there, but that's mainly when they want to do the jump scares. But a film can work without really any sort of music, like Country for Old Men, perfect example of that. But this one, you know, it just makes it even more of a chore because it feels very very flat and it just does not move any sort of with any sort of flow and ease. It's just very very stilted. It struggles a lot in the way this film moves from scene to scene, I feel. And you know there's not really much substance. There's nothing really to be interested, you know, compelled by. I wasn't compelled at all by the characters, by the actual story, and by any really of the kind of backstory to the ghosts and everything, you know, the kind of village. Unfortunately, you know, it fails on a lot of levels, and it doesn't really work for me. You know, I do hate this film because it was, you know, it was boring. As I say, you know, it just had really really weak characters overall. And this kind of film, I can't believe I enjoyed it so little. Because I can love this sort of things. You know, it on paper it's kind of like a go back to the the classic kind of Hammer films and just horror films in general. But I don't get any. There's no charm. There's no. It takes itself very seriously. That's what this film tries to do, but it falls short and it becomes laughable. And you know, as I say, very very uninteresting characters. not great performances. That's just my opinion. You know, direction by James Watkins, bad for me. I will say that. Cinematography, as I say, editing, not good. Couple of things that merit in the cinematography. The acting from Radcliffe and Hinds picks up towards the end. You know, in the last 10 minutes or so. And you know, there's some stuff to merit there. It's just, I suppose that's when they have to actually. It really relies on their performance and not the writing. You know, most of the film, it falls short a lot with them characters because of the writing, of course. You know, where it's just a basic give emotion at the end kind of thing, it picks up a bit. But that's to be expected, and that's why, you know. And you know, I think as well as maybe touches of humanity throughout with the stuff with his son and stuff like that. And Ciarán Hinds' character, Samuel, his kind of backstory. There's little touches here and there that you can merit, but that's all this film is. You know, there's things here and there throughout. Yeah, you know, that are decent, you know, and aren't too bad. The most of the film is pretty awful, or bad at least. Maybe at times weak. So yeah, you can tell. I really do not like this film. You know, and it is bad for me. I feel I'd have to give this film a 34%, and that's what I'll give it, a 34%. I do think it's bad, and you know that would be mathematically that'd be like a 1.5 star. So it's not good, and it is a bad film for me. 34% is a very low mark for me. I just feel, you know, for what on paper what this is such a disappointment, and also it just lacks any sort of energy, as I've said. The horror is not done well, really. Maybe a couple of bits here and there, but really just to do with the framing, the angles and stuff. But other than that, it feels very, very flat. You know, the characters are lifeless. There's not a great story. Really to this film. There's not much to really be interested by. The prologue and everything is pretty cheap, and it just feels like a very, very watered down, kind of just BBC horror. What you'd imagine that would be. Who knows? And I actually kind of have forgotten the actual purpose of, Kip's to go to this village, actually, really. And it's not good. You know, I was feeling very, very tiresome with this film, and that's quite rare. You know, it just didn't. It made me just really, really angry, and as well, you know, the jump scares are very, very cheap, and it's just really annoying, this film, and boring. And then the ending, you know, I thought there was the last 5 minutes I was thinking, okay, maybe something interesting here. And then it happened, you know, the actual ending. I won't ruin it, of course. I'll just kind of say about it indirectly. And it just feels, you know, the ending happened, and some things happened. And I just thought, actually, how does that make sense? Well, not a good ending either, you know. And I just think, I just thought, hang on a minute, what were we actually meant to feel there for this, for these characters? And it does not make it very clear, you know, this woman in black, what happened there, you know, what was we meant to feel there? Because the tone felt very, and then I just thought as well, very, very inconsistent. It did not make sense for me. Please, someone explain maybe in the comments what the ending kind of, what we were meant to feel, because it just felt very, very weird and odd to me, you know. I didn't get the ending, you know, I didn't feel, why did that happen? It was just very off tone, I feel. It wasn't very well done, you know. So overall, I hate this film, and yeah, cheap jump scares, boring film, and just lifeless, and you know, I would not recommend it. Really, you may like it, that's fine. Not for me. So yeah, thanks for watching my review of The Woman in Black.